Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to use Clonezilla, and this is just a cloning software. It's open source. You can go to clonezilla.org. I think this is a phenomenal free open source. It's a little bit hard to use at first, so I'm going to kind of walk through this. There are many other ones, Norton Ghost, things like this. First thing you want to do in clonezilla.org is download your ISO. Now, I burn these to DVD. And here's the problem. The computers I'm using that I'm going to clone doesn't have DVD. Now, I think part of what you have to say is, okay, why do you want to clone? And it can be for a couple different reasons. I want to clone because I just want a perfect backup of my entire disk. Or in this case, I'm building several of the same computers. So this is for a computer lab. Because of that, what I'm going to do is I've already built one. I installed Windows. I made it exactly how I want it to be. And now I'm cloning it to just put it on all the other new builds. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the computer. And I'm going to go back and forth and tap F8, F12. Now, if this doesn't work, you can go directly into BIOS. Okay? And directly into BIOS is usually delete or F2. But oftentimes F8 and F12 will bring you to what this is, and this is the boot device manager. I can get there in BIOS too, but again, I might as well go directly here. So I'm going to go ahead and go down here to SanDisk. So what I did is, instead of burning on DVD, I just used a program called Rufus, and I went ahead and made a bootable, I took my ISO and made a bootable flash drive. So I'm going to go ahead and boot from here. That is my SanDisk. I know that. I don't want to boot from my Windows Boot Manager because that would just boot up Windows. So here we go. Now it's got a couple different options. Pretty much I leave the default settings. It's very 800 by 600. This isn't loading a lot of drivers, but this works well. When you get to know Clonezilla, you can also put an image on a network. And then via network, you can actually install these. And you can see this with Pixie and stuff. So it's pretty amazing. You can actually do some pretty incredible stuff where you can automate this a lot. I still do it kind of old school and do it one at a time, but it depends how many computers you're using. So right now we are loading up I believe this is a Debian, special fork of Debian. And it'll go through some of the different stuff. Okay, so choose language. Obviously, this one's fairly easy. This is not mouse. We are not in a UEFI situation. This is all keyboard. So to move around, I have up and down, and then I can press tab to move and select over here, and then press enter. So we're going to go English. I'm going to keep the default keyboard layout. And we're going to start Clonezilla. There's command line prompt if you want to do specialized installs and stuff. I'm going to show you kind of a very simple, straightforward Clonezilla. Okay, now, a couple different things here. So we've got device image, device, remote source, all of these. So some of these you can read exactly what they say. We are working with a device image, meaning I'm going to take the hard drive in this computer and I'm going to take it and make it a snapshot of it and put it into an image. Because then I can take that image and go ahead and place that onto the other computers. So we are doing device image. You can go directly from a disk to a disk, but we're, again, doing device image, which is going to require me to have 2 flash drives in this case, because one flash drive right now has actually Clonezilla on it, and then I will utilize another flash drive to actually put my image on, okay? Normally, again, I have this in the DVD player, and then I just use this to put the image on. And then, conversely, put the image back onto the new computer. But we're going to have 2 flash drives. Okay, so where is this? Is this on an SSH server, a Samba? Again, we can have these images somewhere else. So this is amazing where I can just have a storage location with the ISOs. As long as this is plugged in, it'll just go grab it from there. I don't have to deal with flash drives at all. But we're going to use a local device because we're using a USB. Make sure at this point that you have your USB drive in. So I don't. So I need to take the USB drive, formatted in exFAT, okay? And you could do an external drive. But I need to take this drive and I need to plug it in and then give it a couple seconds, and now I'm going to press continue. So now it's going to search for it, and this is important because I need to make sure that it finds it. So looking here, it found, this is the M.2 hard drive, the M.2 drive, and right here, flash drive, it's mounted on SDB, that's usually where it's going to be. Flash drive, Samsung, make sure you recognize 128 gigs. Yes, that is it. Make sure your flash drive is larger than how much data you have. These images will probably come out about 50 gigabytes. It does do compression. Don't worry, it's actually a 1 terabyte drive that I'm cloning. Okay, and that's a little deceiving. I'm cloning a 1 terabyte drive to 128 gigs, but the 1 terabyte drive is not full by any means. Okay, it's a brand new copy of Windows. I've got a couple programs and stuff installed that'll carry over, but my 128 gigs, it's definitely under 128 gigs compressed. And it will expand back out to fill a 1 terabyte. So I see it. I'm going to do Control C. And it's just going to grab everything. Now, again, it's going to say, okay, where do you want to mount the home part image? You need to place that onto, make sure you recognize it, SDB1. Okay, so that is correct. And I remember that from the last screen. And again, it can say Samsung flash drive. I want to make sure I put the home part on here. So I'm going to go ahead and go down there and press OK. This part is a very interesting thing. So it says Directory Browser for Clonezilla Image Repository. Sometimes you'll have folders here, especially once you put an image. This is the screen when it says Directory Browser, tab over to Done. Do not press Enter here. Okay, you need to tab over to Done. Do not put it, into the abort. Don't put it into a directory. Just tab over to Done. Otherwise, it will fail on you. So I pressed Enter, and every time you hear me click, that's pressing Enter. It says press Enter to continue again. Okay, beginner expert. For the most part, you're going to stay in beginner as long as you're going from the same size drive to the same size drive. Okay, and right now, for the first time as I'm grabbing it, and I'll show you putting it onto a new one, but right now since I'm grabbing it, I'm going to go beginner because it really doesn't matter. But if I'm going to say take it from a terabyte and put it to a larger drive, actually that's no big deal. If I'm going to go from a terabyte to a 2 terabyte, I'm going to throw the 1 terabyte image onto the new computer. That drive will only have half of it used, but then I'll go into Windows and just expand that partition. What becomes a little more problematic is I'm going to go from a 1 terabyte image to say a 500 gigabyte hard drive. Now, first you need to make sure that that 1 terabyte's not full, because then otherwise it's never going to work. But say you've only got like Windows, a couple programs installed. You've got, maybe 80 gigabytes done. Well, then you should be able to easily move it, but it is a little bit tricky, and there are some special things an expert to be able to do that, because basically you're having to tell Clonezilla try to match it up, okay? Because it's going from 1 terabyte to a 500 gigabyte, a smaller drive. It does work, and I've done it, but you do have to put 2 options on an expert. But that is when I'm putting the image back on. And I'll show that on the next one. But for now, we're going beginner, okay? So what do we want to do? If there's other stuff on that flash drive, if I have other images, it might say restore disk. That's the reverse process. That's putting the image on to the computer. I'm taking the image, I'm cloning the image of the computer and putting it onto my flash drive. So I want to save disk. I can also save local partitions. You can absolutely save just partitions, and then in some ways that circumnavigates the whole or issue of going from 1 terabyte to 500 gig, things like this, because I'm just doing a partition. But you're going to run into a lot of issues because are you selecting the boot partition? It's a little bit more complicated. It is much easier to just say, save the whole disk as an image. It'll take all the partitions, the boot partitions, everything, and drop them on image. So we're going to save the disk. And then it asks me, okay, what's the name? So it automatically gives the date. I usually backtrack and I give it some sort of name. So this is an eSport student. And that way I just kind of remember what this is for. And actually, I'm even going to go further. This is an AMD build because I'm also doing an Intel. So to me, this is a very descriptive name. I'm automatically going to know what this image is. And then I'm just going to go ahead and press enter. And now it's saying which of the local disk is the source. If there was multiple disks in here, you need to make sure you choose it. I only have the 1 terabyte, so I press enter. Now, advanced extra parameters, okay? Choose the compression option. If you have no idea, keep the default. This is parallel gzip compression for multi-core CPU. This is what I have. We can use this other one, but I'm going to go ahead and use the standard default, so I'm going to press enter. Now, do you want to, what I put in is an exFAT partition, and that is problematic because there's not air checking on this. So do you want to do any air checking? And I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is do an air checking. So instead of skip repairing source file, I'm going to say interactively check and repair source file system before saving. So we're going to kind of do this. So we're going to press there, and then it's going to say after it's saved, do you want to check if the image is restorable? Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm not going to do it when I put it back, but because this is my first image, I want to make sure that my image is good. So I'm going to say yes. It's going to take a little longer, but that's okay. Do you want to encrypt or non-encrypt? This is important because this is an exact clone of your entire computer. If you've got passwords, everything else, hey, this thing's just going to be able to hop on someone else's computer and bam. Okay, forensically, this is a great way to do it. In fact, this is exactly what you're going to do if you are in a forensic situation. You want to examine for evidence or something someone's computer, is you're going to make a clone. Rather than make changes in their computer, you're going to make a clone, throw it on another computer, and then research it. But if I encrypt it, then you'd have to have a password. We're not going to encrypt this. And then what do you want to do when it's done? We're going to say and choose reboot shutdown. And then down here, it's getting ready, press enter. And it's grabbing, it found all the different partitions, saying, are you sure you want to continue? Yep. And it's going. And I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so now that we've captured the image from OneDrive, we're going to go ahead and, again, I'm going to tap F8, F12. We need to boot from our flash drive, from our Clonezilla. And we need to get to our boot manager. And again, it's usually F8. So let's see if we got it. Okay, and it does in fact show this. There is not another drive here because it's never been initialized. So this is a brand new build, but normally it would show a drive if this already had an operating system, but it doesn't. So we're going to go ahead and boot from there. And for some reason did a screenshot. Okay, we're here. And now we're going to go ahead and do the default settings. And in many ways, we're going through a lot of the same steps. We're just reversing the process. Okay, we'll keep the default English, default keyboard layout, start Clonezilla, and we are working with a device image still because now we're taking the image from the flash drive and putting it onto the device, which is the disk drive. And it is a local device, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready, and I'm going to take the flash drive that has the image on it and put it into the USB port now to have it ready. So local device. And again, you give it about a couple seconds. Just make sure that this old Debian OS can find it. We're going to press enter. And it's got some errors on this, and this is just because this has never been initialized at all. But what I do see, and so hopefully we should still see it, but now here we've got our flash drive, so it does show it. So we're going to go ahead and Control C. And then where is, again, the mount, that is going to be, if this had a list of other drives, you just have to make sure that you find your flash drive. And this is our flash drive, so press enter. And again, now this is one where now this has this folder, and this is that same thing, the directory for the image repository, the directory browser. Don't press enter. You need to go tab, tab over to done. And then we're going to press enter. Now again, if I'm going same size to same size, both of these happen to be 1 terabyte M.2 drives. It could be SSDs, it could be hard drives. As long as they're same size, we can keep with beginner. If not, if you need to go from a larger image to a smaller drive, you need to go in expert, and you need to, I believe it's option K, but you can look it up, and it's one option that basically says, hey, allow Clonezilla to smart resize, okay? And that'll allow it to crush down. Now, one thing that's incredibly important if you do that, especially a drive that's been used, is make sure you defrag it or trim it. And especially if it's a hard drive, defrag and get all those files in one location, because otherwise you could lose files. And it is always problematic. If I'm going from an image size to a larger drive size, again, you could use this and proportionally do it, but I would say it's just easier to do it. And then when you load up your operating system, it's going to show that your drive has unallocated space, and then just expand the drive. So we're going to keep beginning on this because we're going the same. Now, we don't want to save the disk. Instead, this time we want to go to Restore Disk. We're restoring an image to the local disk. And what's the, where do you choose the image to restore? That is the eSport. That's what we're doing. Where do you want to put it? We, in fact, want to put it right here on this 1 gigabyte NVMe. We can check the image before, or we can skip checking the image. We'll go ahead and check the image, make sure everything's good. We'll choose the reboot shutdown. We can just do shutdown, and that works too. Sometimes I just like to see if there's any errors, so I usually choose the reboot shutdown. We're going to press enter. And it's going. Now, after that, it actually dropped us back to screen because I said check the image. Normally, I think when you save the image the first time is the most important time to check it. I don't think you need to necessarily check it when you put it back on, but this is just to make sure that it hasn't been corrupted. So we actually haven't written yet, but it's saying everything is good. Now it's about to erase every single thing on this here, on this M.2 on your hard drive, SSD, NVMe, but it's about to erase everything. You sure want to continue? Yes. Basically telling you again, you're going to lose everything. You want to continue? Yes. And now that it already verified it, now it's going to actually go to put the image onto the hard drive with all the partitions and everything else and make an exact clone. Whole process that when it actually wrote the image to the disk, this took all about 7 minutes. That's about the fastest you're ever going to have a restore. Normally, this can easily be a 15, 20 minute long process. It was quite a bit longer. This whole process was about 15 minutes, including verifying the image. But if I didn't do verifying the image, this was about 7 minutes. But to be fair, the image was writing from a USB 3.0 flash drive onto an M.2. So I was getting about as best speed as I can. But I don't see any error messages, so it looks good. Let's go ahead and power off. Now that it's powered off, I'm going to go ahead and grab my flash drives, the one with the image, and my bootable that has the Clonezilla on it. And now the big, if this was your computer and you just had your own image and you were just restoring an image on your computer, you're done. Turn it on and you just go. Because I am cloning multiple computers, I'm going to go ahead and turn on one. I need to make sure it works. So this is a brand new identical build computer from the first one. I need to make sure that it boots, that it's running okay, and I also have to make a change to the computer name. And that's something that's important because if it's on the same network, computer names should be unique and it can cause issues. And right now, this is not unique. So I need to change the computer name, and I just do it sequentially. So it's booting. This looks good. We're immediately in, so that's an excellent thing that happened. I'm going to do a Windows pause break. It wants connection to the internet, which it should have. And let me look to make sure I have internet plugged in. And this is one thing, I'm using a key. If you're doing this with a retail Windows key, of course it's going to yell at you because you can only use it for one computer time. But this is a special lab key, so it should work. And there we go. Windows is activated. Excellent. So that means everything went through. So the one thing I need to do here is the computer name. So I have it called eSport 1, and that was the original computer. But I'm going to go ahead and change that. And this does not have admin privileges, so I got to type in my admin password. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to change the actual name. So I'm going to change it, and I'm just going sequential. So the first one was called 1. This one's going to be called 2. Okay, and really just that easy. I'm going to press OK. Press OK. Close. Restart. We'll make sure it restarts. And as long as that happens, then I just move on to the next one. And already in the reboot, this is looking good. It's a little faster. Everything's taken nicely. We're in. I can do a Windows pause break. Everything looks good. It ended up taking that. Excellent. I can look and make sure that there's nothing weird. I can go to Properties on this PC. Excuse me. On this PC, I go to Manage. Let's look at Disk Management. And I need to be administrator, but I'll log into the administrator account after this. But you want to look at disk management and make sure that your disk doesn't have any weirdness, that it doesn't have any free space somewhere, but it should look identical to the other. And even when I go into device manager here, and again, if you go into device manager, make sure you got no exclamation points, but it shouldn't because this is an exact clone. And that's it.